Please don't. What did I do? I have never been served anything like this before. Welcome to downtown Vancouver. That was a protest. They handed me this, which says, "State-led mass killing of Falun Gong prisoners of conscience for their organs in China." Which, if that's true, that's sure a downer. But that was some good music, so, you know. Today we're gonna walk around downtown, see what we can see. There go the bells. Boo! Boo! Get out of here, cruise ship. We hate you. One time I stood here and cried as the sun was coming up, and it was very romantic. Blue heron! Hello, buddy. It sure is. There's even directions to get to it. So you can go look at the word Vancouver except big and pink. I just found a random calculator. Does it work? It does! It didn't work. Find of the day! Just found this on the sidewalk. Gonna add it to the collection when I get home. Into the bird you go. Hello! If you were here last week, then you would remember that our question was, what is positive? Today is the antithesis of that question, which is, what is negative? So, the thing with this question is there are like zero good answers to it. Like, we understand the idea of negative, but we don't understand anything about how it works, how it even got there. This is like pretty much the hardest question in the puzzle. So what is negative? Science knows basically nothing about what is negative. And I also know basically nothing about what is negative because I only know as far as science knows. But I got my theories. So today I'm gonna try to explain to you how I understand what negative is and how it works. You may think these are crazy ramblings. You may think it makes sense. I don't know. Regardless of how you feel about it, I'm making this video, so here you go. This is a camera. There's a lot of different parts to it. You've got so many different little things all coming together to make this camera a camera. It can't really do its job as a camera unless it has all the parts it needs. That's a lot of information. This is a magic 8-ball. Does negative make any sense? Concentrate and ask again. There's a lot of different stuff in here. There's the juice, there's the shell, or whatever the fuck you call this. That's a bunch of information. It's different from this information, but it's still information. This is a bass guitar. This is a whole different set of information. It has a different purpose, it does different stuff, and we've got a whole world of different stuff. If you remember anything from what we talked about last week, all the stuff that exists in the physical world is positive. There are so many different positive things, and with each and every one of those positive things comes a whole set of information about that thing. There's where that thing came from, what it's made of, how long it's been here, where it is in relation to every other thing in the world, in the universe even. There's a whole bunch of questions you could ask with hypothetical answers that probably exist, whether or not we're able to figure it out, whether or not anyone's aware of it at all. If a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, does it still make a sound? Yeah, of course it still makes a sound. The vibrations are still gonna happen, and they're still gonna move through space like sound does, whether or not anyone is there to perceive it. So in physics, there's this analogy called Schrodinger's cat analogy. And this might be an unpopular opinion, but I think it's kind of stupid. So for those of you who don't know, the analogy goes like this. So Mr. Schrodinger was talking about wanting to conduct an experiment, and because this was the old-timey days, the way he thought about doing this was putting a cat in a box with a poison bottle that would break on the inside, and then they would measure how fast the cat died, I think. Okay, and basically, they say, in the box, there's this cat, but they're outside the box, and they don't know if the cat is dead or alive because they can't see it. And so they declare the cat to be in a state of both alive and dead because they don't know which one it is. And I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure the cat is well aware of whether or not it's dead. Like, it's either dead or alive. Just because you don't know which one doesn't mean it's neither. One has happened. In your reality, neither has happened, but that doesn't mean that the actual reality neither has happened. I've read it, I've reread it, I've gone over it so many times because I'm like, do I just not understand this? No. It's like when you hide your face from a baby and they think you disappear and they're like, and then you go, peekaboo! And then they're like, like it's one or the other, guys. Anyways, that's kind of the premises of my theory on how negative works. Because the way I think negative works has everything to do with information. All these things are made of positive. The scientific word for that would be matter. They're made of stuff. And technically, it all comes from the same stuff. It just turns into different stuff. Antimatter is the most elusive thing in science. It's been proven time and time again that it has to exist, and that there actually has to be at least 3 times more of it than there is of actual physical matter that we can measure and gauge and prove, essentially. I think antimatter is just the information that makes up physical matter. I think that the reason science can't find any of it with all of their magical tools that they've created is because they are searching and searching and searching for something in the physical space that cannot exist in the physical space because it's made of negative matter. So it exists in a negative space that you're not gonna find here. Because if you think about it, information isn't something you can touch. It's not something you can measure. It's something that we know is there because it has to be. When I say positive and negative need each other, I mean the physical world needs the non-physical world in order to exist at all. I think consciousness is the portal, essentially, between the physical and the non-physical worlds. I think everything, including thoughts, beliefs, emotions, imagination, fantasy, everything that goes on in your head, everything that goes on in the chemistry of living things, all of it also exists as information in the negative space. Which is why there's always going to be more negative matter than there is physical matter. Because physical matter can only do so much. This can only really be a ring until it changes into something else. But the information of how many times I've put on this ring, how many times it's moved around, that is constantly growing. The information of everything is always going to be expanding, just like the universe, because change happens. And when any change whatsoever happens, it is recorded as information in the negative space. Every movement ever made, every thought ever had, every belief ever created, everything is real and exists in the negative space as information. So essentially what that means is everybody's right. Because to the scientists, the cat is neither alive nor dead. So their reality in their present moment is one where the cat is neither. The reality of the information being put into the present moment is either the cat is alive or not, and that cat knows full well whether it's dead or not. But information can't exist without a thing to have information about. So, negative cannot exist without positive. Positive cannot exist without negative. Two sides of the same coin. What actually is the internet? Tell me. Take a second and try to think about what the internet is. Because I'll tell you what the internet's not. The internet is not the basements and basements and basements of computers that are constantly running to hold the information of the internet. Those are just the computers. If I want to still go on the internet, if I'm standing in one of those basements and I want to go on the internet, I'm still going to have to pull out my phone and go on there to access the computers. The internet isn't your phone. Your phone is the thing that carries the internet and shows it to you so you know what's on the internet. Sounds and light to tell your brain what the information of the thing in the computer is in a way that you will understand, because that's how we've built it to work. The internet isn't, the videos and the articles and the apps and whatever on the internet. Those are things on the internet. We call the internet this network, this world wide web that goes everywhere, that's constant. But the web is invisible. The web isn't a real web. The web is what we call it to make it make sense to our brains. But if you think about it, it's actually just wavelengths being carried across the world. The internet is just a pool of information, something we made up and believe in. The internet isn't a real place. It's a space we go in our heads because we're actually only seeing light and hearing sound on a screen. But we're going somewhere that doesn't exist. But it does because we're always there, on it all the time. We dive into the negative space when we go into the internet because we are entering a place of sheer information. The internet isn't anything physical. It's all negative. Just like religions, belief systems, philosophies, all of it, everything lives in the negative space. Within our world is a whole other, even more infinite world. Because the thing is, information pretty much goes on forever. It can't die like physical stuff can, because physical stuff changes constantly into new stuff. But once information happens in the negative space, it stays there because it's happened. There's no unhappening it. Every thought you've ever had, every song you've ever sung, every feeling you've ever felt, everything that's ever happened to you, everything that's ever happened to everyone you love, everything that's ever happened to everyone you don't love, and everyone you don't know. It never ends. It just never ends. It keeps on going and going. I think that's why the universe is expanding. I think that's why we're all so confused, is because we just misunderstand what's going on here. As far as Schrodinger's cat goes, I think that's more an analogy on perceived reality than it is on antimatter. You might think I'm stupid. You might think I'm right. Either way, I don't care. I just had to tell you. So let's go ahead. Oops. I made it gigantic on purpose. Dude. This is the board so far. Thank you for watching. I hope that made sense. Do you guys want to see my fidget toy? It's a puzzle. That's all for this week. We'll see you next week when we ask the question, what is math? And don't forget, never stop asking questions! Ew. Ew. Gross. I say literally smoking a joint.